First of all, this Super Bowl is a lot more interesting than you think. I think this is actually going to be a really good game. I think you have a lot of good stories here. I think you have a lot of history on the line here with the Eagles and the Patriots. Obviously, the whole Tom Brady, Bill Belichick legacy will be questioned tomorrow night. And I even said last year after the 28-3 comeback, this was the best 1-2 duo in the history of the NFL. That Tom Brady was the best quarterback in the league's history, and that Bill Belichick was the greatest head coach in the league's history. I still stand by that. Whether the result pending tomorrow night impacts the sixth ring or not, I still stand by that. Honestly, for those of you out there, and I've been hearing it all week, and I heard it yesterday as well from somebody, for anybody who really thinks that New England is going to blow Philadelphia out or vice versa, you need to have your head examined. This is going to be a really good game. This is going to be a pound-for-pound game. I heard the guys talking on Upon Further Review yesterday about this being a potential low-scoring game, and I agree with that 100%. I think both defenses are going to come out and play hard. I think both offenses are going to come out and have something to prove, especially Nick Foles, and we'll get to him a little bit later in the show. When you really come down to it, if you're the Eagles fan this morning, and we're going to hear from Tyler Monahan a little bit later on, I can't imagine how much sleep he probably hasn't gotten this weekend. I've never had this feeling of seeing my team in the Super Bowl. For Tyler, even though it is the Eagles, I am happy for him, as he is one of the resident Eagles fans that I don't have a problem with. If you're that Eagles fan this morning, I can only imagine the nerves and the feeling of knowing that your team is going to play in the biggest game of the year tomorrow night, and you're going to see it basically for the first time. I'm not sure if our friends like Tyler, and I know some friends as well who are my age, really remember 2005 that well. This one in particular, they can really sit back and appreciate it. And if you're that Eagles fan this morning, then I wish you the best of luck tomorrow in Super Bowl 52, because it is going to be a tough task. Now, I know, really, in my opinion, the Eagles, I think, have the more complete roster, at least on the defensive side of the ball. It is history, basically, against a dynasty. We saw last year, and I said it on Upon Further Review yesterday with Sean Martin and Tyler Monahan, even though Tyler was on for only a little bit. This game is not over until the final whistle and when the clock hit 0 in the fourth quarter. And we saw that last year when the Falcons were up 28-3 late in the third quarter. The Patriots came back, they tied the game, and they won it in overtime, no problem. Really, this game, and it could have been anybody else, and personally, and I've said this before, if Jacksonville was in this game, I'd probably be picking Philadelphia to win. But in this situation, no matter who you're facing when it comes to the New England Patriots, you still have to go up against the best quarterback in NFL history and the best head coach in NFL history, and that is no easy task, whether you have a more complete roster or not. And I think tomorrow night you're going to see a lot of that. I think you're going to see a lot of pound-for-pound action. I think you're going to see the Philadelphia front seven perform well. I think you're going to see the New England offense perform well in some capacity. And overall, I think these teams are similar in a lot of ways. I think the way that they both have gotten here, though, is very different. I think when you look at the AFC in comparison to the NFC, you stop and you think and you realize that the NFC was vastly superior to the AFC this year, and you saw that. The AFC this year, next to New England and Pittsburgh was embarrassed on their home turf 3 weeks ago. Really, it was New England that was going to play in this Super Bowl and represent the AFC. We all knew that. And the NFC was wide open to just about every team there. The Eagles, obviously the NFC champions, they had a good shot. The Vikings were hosting in their own stadium, best overall defense in the league. They had a good shot. I picked the Rams to be in the Super Bowl. I thought they had a good shot. I thought they had a really good, young, talented team. The Falcons had a chance to repeat. I thought they were the hottest team going into the playoffs, and they showed it against the Rams in the first round. I thought the Saints had a chance. The Panthers, maybe I would have given them the least chance to make the Super Bowl. But overall, in comparison to the AFC, every team in the NFC had a case that they were going to make it. Every team in the NFC had an argument where you could sit there and be like, yeah, I could see that taking place. And it comes down to this, too. And I've been dead wrong on the Eagles this whole time. I've picked against them in just about every aspect whatsoever. I'm man enough to say I was wrong. When it came to the Atlanta game, we had previewed that game by saying that in the Eagles' last 5 games, they gave up 104 points on defense. They almost let the Giants beat them. They gave up a lot of points against the Rams. The Raiders shouldn't have put up anything. It was going to come down to the fact of, can Nick Foles do this, and can the Eagles do this without Carson Wentz? It was an ugly game, no doubt, but they got it done. They got it done 15-10. And the defense overall stepped up, and I had my concerns with the secondary at least. You know, I knew the front seven would perform well. I knew the Falcons weren't going to have that much of a running game. I didn't think necessarily that the secondary was going to be up to par because of how they fared in their last 5 games. Guys like Darby, Jalen Mills, Patrick Robinson, all those guys. I didn't think they would fare well. They all played fantastic. The Minnesota game, I said the same thing. I said, Minnesota is going to have the opportunity of a lifetime. And while I did say, and many of us on WMSC Sports said it as well, that if the Vikings allow the emotion of going back home to your own Super Bowl get in the way, you're going to get blown out. I personally didn't think it would. When they went up 7-0 in Philadelphia and silenced the crowd, I firmly believe that they took their foot off the gas pedal and they started cruising through, and that's what cost them. That's what cost them big time. Philadelphia's defense stepped up right after that. Nick Foles played the game of his career, and now they find themselves 1 win away from their first ever Super Bowl victory in franchise history. As the resident Dallas fan, I'm not rooting for it, but I'm not going to sit here and say it wouldn't be something special for a team to win their first Super Bowl, especially against the New England Patriots, a team that has won 5. They are the favorite again to win tomorrow. They have the best quarterback in the NFL. They have the best head coach in the NFL. They always find ways to win. They found a way to beat Jacksonville 2 weeks ago in a game that they probably should have lost. They find ways to get the job done, one way or the other. So yes, it would be special to see the upset. A lot of this you can credit Nick Foles for. When Carson Wentz went down against the Rams, I immediately said that's it. I said there's no way that this team is going to be able to come back from this. There's no way that the Super Bowl favorites in the NFC are going. I couldn't picture it. Nick Foles, to his credit, had a phenomenal end of the season. A phenomenal NFC championship 2 weeks ago against the Vikings. He is going to need a career night tomorrow to get it done. You're not going to be able to have the offense cruise like they did against Atlanta. They're going to get blown out that way. New England, especially late in the game, is going to find ways to attack. They are going to find ways to damage that Philadelphia secondary and maybe even that front seven. I'm not going to sit here and say that Deion Lewis and James White are going to have career games with New England, but I am going to say that they can be viable threats. The Eagles are going to need a career night overall to get the job done tomorrow. You're going to need the best game ever out of Nick Foles, Nelson Aguilar, Zach Ertz, Fletcher Cox, Darby, Jalen Mills, you name it. You name it, they need it. Especially, you're going to need a smart night out of Doug Peterson as well. This is really, and we've seen it before, bad play calling in the Super Bowl. Stick to the game plan that got you here, and you'll be just fine. I understand you're playing New England. I understand it's a dynasty that you're facing up against. What teams don't understand is, yes, sometimes you have to flip the script. Sometimes you got to change it around. Do what got you there. Run the ball. Throw the ball in key spots. All right, have your defense carry you through the game and have Nick Foles finish the job later on. I'm not going to sit here and say that Philadelphia doesn't have a chance to win this game. They do. To me, this is going to come down to which team blinks first. I mean, you have very similar teams in aspects. In my opinion, I think the Philly defense is better. I think the offenses can be similar in ways. Obviously, Tom Brady has more experience than Nick Foles, but Nick Foles can go out and make noise, and I firmly believe that he can get the job done. Do I think he will? No, I don't. I've been picking against Philly all year. I will stick by that right now. I think New England, at the end of the day, has more experience. I think that's going to come into a factor in this game, and I think they'll have enough to get it done. It's going to be a close one all the way around. I wouldn't be surprised to see Philadelphia up at halftime, but it's very difficult to bet against the best head coach and the best quarterback in the NFL. Impossibly, it's history. You don't mess with that. They've been here before. They have been here multiple times. For a lot of Eagles, this is their first time. And that, to me, I think is going to come into play. Really, for the Patriots, number one. And I mentioned this before. Throughout the entire season, we've seen how much the NFC is vastly superior to the AFC. I think you saw that in the playoffs, and I think you're going to see that again tomorrow night. I honestly think that I wouldn't be surprised if Philadelphia started this game off strong if they went on a tear first, and then New England has to crawl their way back in a third or fourth quarter comeback. I wouldn't doubt seeing that at all. I think it may take that to beat Philadelphia. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to a couple of things. Number one, Gronk is healthy and ready to play. He has cleared concussion protocol. I don't think the concussion 2 weeks ago will be a factor as he is cleared, but he has been a little bit out of it for the last 2 weeks. Obviously, it was more of a decision as of Wednesday morning or Thursday morning when he was cleared on if he was going to play or not. So he is going to play Super Bowl 52. I think, really, to me, one of the X factors for New England is going to be Brandon Cooks. Now, you remember when the Patriots traded for Brandon Cooks back in March, a lot of people said with that, New England will win the Super Bowl, or they'll at least be in the Super Bowl, and New England will have this 16-0 season and this and that. I heard all of that when Brandon Cooks was traded there. 10 months later, they are in the Super Bowl, and he was a big part this season in getting him there. I think he can be a big part in them potentially winning it tomorrow night. If Brandon Cooks can challenge that Philadelphia secondary, which up until the playoffs really hasn't been that strong or impressive, but in the playoffs they have been, I think if he can give them a challenge, maybe get open downfield, or in the middle of the field in the secondary, maybe in double coverage, I think Brandon Cooks can have a really good game. I think you're going to see Danny Amendola in a situation he's never been in before. A phenomenal AFC championship against the Jaguars, 2 touchdowns in that game. He caught the game winner as well. I think you're going to see him in a lot of aspects in this game, whether it be short passes or down the field. Obviously, Philadelphia has him as a target, though, because of the AFC championship that he had. But I think at the end of the day, I think Danny Amendola's title game performance proved Brady can really dice up any secondary in the league. I really do think that, because the Jacksonville defense was no joke 2 weeks ago. And I think he's going to do the same thing tomorrow night with guys like Danny Amendola, with guys like Brandon Cooks, with guys like Chris Hogan, with guys like Rob Gronkowski. The issue here, though, is whether the Patriots are going to have a solid running game or not. And in my opinion, I really don't think they are. So you're going to have to find other ways for Dion Lewis and James White to get open, whether that be screen passes, short passes. They're going to have to find other ways, because I think this front seven is going to shut down the running game. That's not going to stop Brady from doing what he's got to do. A big matchup, again, I'm looking forward to is the receivers against the secondary. I know the front seven is going to get to Brady. I know the front seven is probably going to shut down the running game. I'm curious to see if Philadelphia has one more performance in them when it comes down to overall defense being spectacular. I'm curious to see if they've got one more left when it comes down to a big game, because you saw Philadelphia's defense show up in the NFC divisional round. You saw them humble Minnesota in the NFC Championship game. They're going to need one more performance to shut down New England and that New England offense. Amendola, he reaped the benefits against Jacksonville. Brandon Cooks, Chris Hogan, maybe even Philip Dorsett can play pivotal roles just like they did against Jacksonville. And Gronk is good to go. New England has a healthy crew of receiving options to attack an Eagles secondary, which again, obviously greatly improved since Ronald Darby returned from injury. But at the end of the day, still a secondary that does concern me from time to time. It hasn't concerned me in a couple of weeks. And yes, with Ronald Darby now back, obviously, things have improved in that secondary. A point example, Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs couldn't get open to save their lives 2 weeks ago. That was to the credit of Darby and Patrick Robinson and all those guys. If they can hold up against New England's offense, this could be something special. But New England's offense is being led by the most incisive quarterback of his generation in Tom Brady. And again, Philly, to me, boasts the better roster. I understand they have the better roster. They have a much hotter defense, and they have a much better story. But it's success versus history. It's a guy who has been in this game on Sunday as of tomorrow night 8 times versus a team where the majority of them have not ever played in this game. LeGarrette Blount has played in it before against his adversary tomorrow night. This is a QB-driven league. You're going to see that tomorrow night with Nick Foles as well. I think he's going to play a good game, but it is a QB-driven league. Tom Brady has proven all year long, and especially in the AFC Championship game against Jacksonville, he can tear apart any single secondary, no matter how good they are, and find weapons in guys like Philip Dorsett, in guys like Danny Amendola, guys like Chris Hogan, hell, even guys like James White and Dion Lewis. To me, as long as Tom Brady can tear apart that Philadelphia secondary, they'll be fine, because I don't think they're going to do much against the front seven. I don't think you're going to see James White or Dion Lewis rush for probably more than about 110 yards. I'll keep it like that. I don't think either of them are going to have a phenomenal running game tomorrow. I don't think either of them will probably score more than one rushing touchdown. I actually think that Philadelphia's front seven will hold up from start to finish. I do believe that. To me, if Wentz was healthy, Eagles may be the favorite tomorrow. And even though Nick Foles has had a phenomenal end of the year and a phenomenal postseason, Carson Wentz to me is the better quarterback. I heard yesterday, would there be a chance that if Nick Foles pulled this off, would he be the starting quarterback, or at least be considered to be the starting quarterback next year? Right now, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say he'll either be the backup or he'll be traded. Nick Foles has obviously proven He can be a starting quarterback in this league. He did it his first time around with Philadelphia when Michael Vick got hurt, and then he had to come in and win the division. He did it this year when Carson Wentz got hurt, and Nick Foles led the Eagles to a Super Bowl tomorrow night. I think some teams are going to see that. I wouldn't be surprised to see Philly get calls asking if Nick Foles is available to be traded. One way or the other, I think New England has the experience. They have the head coach. They have the quarterback. I think they have enough to get the job done as well.